Welcome back to the exciting travails of Phineas T. Swagibrad. Recently, our hero found himself stranded in a small town, totally by accident, as he crashed his balloon. Watch as he does his best to get back into the sky as soon as possible in the adventures of Phineas T. Swagibrad.
My grand adventures have been stalled somewhat by the inoperable nature of my recently crashed balloon. It seems that no one in this town has ever even seen an airborne adventurer, and accordingly they are ill-equipped to meet the needs of someone descending on their town in such a manner. Unfortunately, few people here are able to purchase rare artifacts, as it seems many of them simply lack the capital necessary to invest in such luxuries. This is an unfortunate obstacle I had not foreseen. My rations are beginning to get quite low, so I traded one of the worst of the golden priceless treasures I had obtained for a warm meal and a room. I tried to sell him some of the smaller artifacts as well, or at least convince him to give me some coins as change, but despite my best efforts, I got nowhere. I discovered an interesting lead today. While trying to explain to a local potato miner the benefits of owning golden ancient artifacts, he informed me that I would have much more luck peddling my wares to the local mystic. This was the first I had heard about this man, and I accordingly eagerly asked for more details. Apparently, he is esteemed mostly as a crackpot by much of the village, and is always blabbering on about some new discovery or invention that will change the world. Quite a different take from the perspective of those I've talked with thus far, you may note. To my dismay, I was informed that the mystic was out of town, and it was unclear when he would return. Consigned to the fact that I wouldn't be able to make any progress towards my departure from this city for the rest of the day, I convinced a local villager to give me a tour of the famous potato mines here. It was quite a marvelous experience to see the flowing vines that chain all the way down under long, complicated passageways, connected in a labyrinthine layout, with vines trailing up and down the walls, forming the very support structures the mines themselves are made out of, with growing potatoes all over the place. I regret to inform you that as magical as the experience may sound, the condition for the workers there were deplorable. They are forced to work long hours, deep down beneath the ground, in dark tunnels, with only the dim glow of the potato leaves to guide them. Though it was simply another part of the endless drudgery of the life of a potato miner, I found the bioluminescence of the leaves in these tunnels fascinating. I took a few branches back up to the surface with me, so I can put them on my balloon once I finally leave again, whenever that may be. I can only tour the mine so many times before the sapping effect that it has upon the soul drains away my very will to live, a fate considered worse than death. Unless one was referring to the death where one accidentally lights the final candle in a complex ritual that summons a pack of wood elves into your home, destroying everything. That's worse. Great news! Upon arising this morning, I looked up the hill to the humble cottage inhabited by the mystic, and my gaze soon fell upon a thin stream of smoke trickling out of the chimney. I rushed up there post-haste, and seeing the door, dropped in for a visit. Immediately upon walking in, I called out with a cheery, "Hello there!" He didn't react to my greeting at all, and seemed very preoccupied with some intricate mechanism before him. As best as I could tell, it seemed to have something to do with precisely measuring sand, but why anyone would care about such a thing was a complete mystery to me. It wasn't long at all before he rose to greet me, and I introduced myself to him. To my surprise, he had never heard of the great Phineas T. Swagibrad. I had been travelling for several days now, and surely one would have expected news like that to travel. I discerned that this man was seemingly quite oblivious to the great events in the realms of society, with the exception only of academic discoveries. He possessed an astounding ability to expound upon the complex nature of seemingly inordinate objects, things that nobody would ever ask about or ever need to know, but which he had boundless knowledge about and was able to share ad nauseum for what seemed to be eternity. Surely, if any man could assist me in this town, it would be Gabe. I brought Gabe the Mystic to inspect my balloon, as he was aware of such contraptions, but seemed wholly unfamiliar with the details involved in the construction of my particular balloon. I took the time to share with him the curious weapon I had discovered in my previous travels, and to strike a deal over some of the artifacts that I had required. I would need more funding to continue my adventures in any meaningful capacity, and here was one of the few people willing to buy in this town. I was able to sell several curious trinkets to him, along with a copy of the ancient markings I discovered. In return for the markings, he took a look at the working parts of my balloon, and determined that the problem was that there was a hole in the balloon. Truly an expert at work. Thoroughly astonished at the skillful way in which he diagnosed the problem so swiftly, I thought my problems were solved and that I would be back in the air by nightfall. Unfortunately, he lacked the skills and materials to do the actual repair work himself. He did, however, inform me that the very people who could perform the complex tanning process required were conveniently in the next town over, only a day's ride away. I prepared to leave town within the hour, only to be informed that leaving before the next morning would surely leave me stranded between towns, forced to spend a night in the woods. I may be an adventurer, but I am no ruffian. My time again extended in this small one-horse town. I devoted the rest of the day to plotting my travel to the Tanners. In that time of extra planning, I discovered that this is literally a one-horse town. His name is Greg, by the way. He's very sweet, loves carrots, and enjoys long walks on the beach. But unfortunately for me, that horse was out of town. This forced me to use the same transportation as everyone else here, as I had no other alternative options. I was able to charter a rather large hog with a saddle for quite a reasonable price, and made Gabe the Mystic write down the process I would need to repair my balloon. Apparently, only leather that has been Galdivian double-tanned would be both strong and light enough to simultaneously float and withstand the forces such a fabric must undergo. Although I shall need to rest up for my journey to the craftsman who can aid me in my problem, my moment of great need, I couldn't help but be entranced by the glow of the full moon this evening. I wandered out through the town, navigating by the moonbeams lighting up the streets in conjunction with the dim glow of the potato leaves hanging along the rafters in the streets. It was really just a stereotypical potato mining town, but it had its own little charm because of that. It was weird to see the potato school, where children are taught about these plants on an in-depth scientific level, learning about the intricacies of their biology, growth patterns, and harvesting methods, yet completely empty in this moment, deep in the night. The whole inside of the school seemed to glow, where bioluminescent liquids had seeped into the stone over generations of study of these mystical plants. It was beautiful in its own unique way. Without a doubt, traveling by hog must be the most uncomfortable way to travel. I will likely have sore spots for weeks to come. I must admit that what they do lack in comfort, they make up for in dependability, and I arrived in Dungarvan all in one very bruised and battered piece. I called out to the first tanner that I saw upon entering the town, and asked if he could do some Galdivian tanning for me. He seemed taken aback by my request and asked me if I was thinking of galvanizing tanning. Once I had reiterated my request again, he took me up the street towards the tannery so he could defer my request to a higher power. As he led me up the wooden streets to the main office of the tannery, we made light conversation about the weather, the recent discoveries of ancient artifacts, and speculated about when the dentists would next come through this area. This conversation was, of course, by no means a competition, but it bears noting that one of us had found a lot more ancient artifacts than the other. Significantly more. And while I can't guarantee it, I highly suspect that one of us may not have found any ancient artifacts. Before long, I was talking to the head tanner, who was a delightful person, though he too was extremely surprised when I asked if he could do some Galdivian tanning. He assured me that they were quite capable of that here. Dismissing our guide to return to his regular duties, John then proceeded to lead me on a tour of the facilities, where he explained the process that would happen in depth and great detail. The process involves cleaning, bleaching, stretching, freezing, breathing, foaming, combing, blazing, tracing, glazing, facing, turning, burning, damping, crimping, drying, and curing. It was quite a marvelous experience to see all the wonders that go into the creation of such fine material. I was quite certain that this process could create a suitably strong product for my balloon, but I was taken aback when John asked me what it was I would like Galdivian tanned. I had absolutely no idea. They are the tanners. It's their job to get the skins that they tan and do their tanning things to make them suitable for use. He was adamant that the responsibility of obtaining the items to be tanned, however, was solely up to the purchaser, which is likely symptomatic of a fundamental flaw in their business model, if you ask me. Nonetheless, I needed to get back into the air, so I asked what kind of skin he would suggest refusing to get for me. To my dismay, he said that most pelts completely fall apart under the rigorous process of Galdivian tanning, meaning we would need a tougher beast to make this repair possible. Not many beasts nearby have a strong enough skin for this project, but there was one which fit the bill precisely. The dreaded Barrager. This frightful beast is a combination between a bear and a badger, and is known for not only its great strength, but also its uncanny resilience. The Barrager has teeth as sharp as blades in its massive maw, and long claws that can pierce any leather. The Barrager is differentiated from common massive bears by the distinctive markings on its head. It is also the only subspecies of bears known to be able to communicate with badgers. Not many stable men are willing to go up against a 23-stone Barrager, but the only way back into the sky for me was through this beast. Taking on a Barrager by oneself would be a fool's errand, so I endeavored to enlist the help of various townspeople. Although the Barrager had been harassing the village for quite some time, and everyone was in favor of eliminating the threat generally, no one seemed willing to volunteer themselves, specifically, as part of the party to deal with this grievous threat. I would need men with a bit more courage to take down this creature. Great news! Although no one in the town was willing to march out against the Barrager with me, I had no trouble at all in hiring out a few hunters visiting the town to sell their wares to the tanners. I did have to dip into my coin supply, an alarming amount to do so, but I'm sure that I'll be able to make most of that back by simply selling whatever I don't use from the fallen Barrager. These hunters really are remarkable people, traveling around wherever their whims take them, capturing rare beasts and trading trinkets between them. They weren't interested in exchanging any of the items that I had to offer for a coin, but they did give me a curious-looking pocket watch through a series of trades.
It relaxes the mind somewhat to know that though one is marching towards plausible death, one is marching with quite capable companions. I have complete confidence that most of us will come out of this alive. We'll be setting out in search of the Barrager in just a few minutes now, once the rest of the hunters have finished their final preparations. Wish me luck!